Russia has armed Vladimir Putin with a historic and unprecedented mandate, his fourth presidential term. He'll rule the world's largest nation for another 6 years. Our next report talks about the election that was a farce and the president who rules like a czar.
This is what victory looks like, even if it's your fourth. Russia's majority has spoken, and this man, Vladimir Putin, will rule the world's largest country for 6 more years, till 2024. Declaring his victory in below freezing temperatures in Moscow, Putin promised his supporters a better and a brighter future.
Я вижу в этом как минимум признание того, что сделано за последние годы в очень сложных условиях. Вижу в этом доверие и надежду. Надежду наших людей на то, что мы будем работать так же напряженно, так же ответственно и еще более результативно. Спасибо, что у нас такая мощная, многомиллионная команда. Нас ждет успех! Да!
A former KGB spy, he's dominated Russian politics for 18 years. At the age of 65, he is already the country's longest-serving leader since Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin. The landslide re-election marks a meteoric rise in Putin's performance. This time, he's won 76.7% votes as compared to 63.6% in 2012 elections. So what happened to the other contenders in this one-horse race? His nearest competition, millionaire communist Pavel Grudinin, received about 12% votes, while ultra-nationalist Vladimir Zhirinovsky took 5.7%. Former reality TV presenter Ksenia Sobchak got 1.7%, while veteran liberal politician Grigory Yavlinsky received just over 1% of the vote. There are mixed feelings in the country.
My favorite president was elected. We have a big day in our family. We are very glad.
This is terrible because it's unfair. I did not vote because I think it is not necessary. This is my choice.
The man who finished second to Putin with just 12% votes has called these elections the filthiest in the country's history.
Yes, as head of Russian Central Election Commission, Ella Pamfilova said, it was the greatest election and the filthiest one in the current post-Soviet era. That's why I have no regrets. I feel sorry that my opponents and people who organized the election, as well as those in power, made such a filthy political show out of this election.
But Putin has many battles to fight. The country has seen purchasing power decrease continuously for the past 4 years after the economy was hit with international sanctions for annexation of Crimea in 2014, especially in the provinces.
The prices are insane. And what will happen next? Will they go up even more? You ask me, what can I buy? I can't buy anything.
With a massive and historic mandate, Putin has tightened his grip on Russia for another 6 years. His relations with the West are on a hostile trajectory, and back home, issues like economy and corruption demand his immediate attention. What will the strong man do? The world is watching. Bureau Report, WION.
The world certainly is watching now that Putin is here to stay for the foreseeable future. We're also looking at what it means for the stakeholders outside Russia. Last year, remember, India and Russia marked 70 years of diplomatic relations with a successful summit in that country. President Putin's re-election is reason to cheer for India, say most experts. The Modi-Putin meeting last year led to an agreement for 2 more nuclear reactors at Kudankulam in Tamil Nadu. India and Russia have worked closely in the area of defense. With technology and expertise from Russia, India has been able to set up an indigenous nuclear submarine program. Moscow continues to back New Delhi's demand for reform at the United Nations, which also includes India's bid for a permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council. The Kremlin has also not shied away from publicly announcing its support for India's membership to the Nuclear Suppliers Group. There is enough evidence to suggest that Vladimir Putin is bullish about Russia's relationship with India, but there are concerns as well. To gain a foothold in Afghanistan, for instance, Russia in recent years has allegedly been reaching out to Pakistan and the Taliban. These overtures could have ramifications for Indo-Russian ties. But Russia's growing proximity with China could be the bigger concern for New Delhi. There is increasing convergence between Moscow and Beijing on global issues. Both countries can be seen backing each other's positions at the United Nations Security Council. Experts also believe that economic relations are the strategic basis for the deep Sino-Russia relations. China remains Russia's biggest trading partner and the largest Asian investor in Russia. So the road ahead looks smooth, but there are going to be some roadblocks, and that's something that both sides will have to work together on. Russian President Putin is also one of the strongest leaders in the world today. Russians have given him a commanding mandate, but Western powers have not been kind to him. Tensions between Russia and the West continue to rise, and Putin's return is going to do little to cool things down.
He was a KGB spy who witnessed the fall of the Soviet Union. Now, by securing a fourth term in office, Vladimir Putin has emerged as one of the most powerful leaders in the world. Vladimir Putin's political and diplomatic moves are engineered towards establishing Russia as a superpower. But the United States and European nations see Putin as a political and military threat. Russia's alleged meddling attempts in the run-up to the 2016 US elections has put Russia back at the center of political discourse in the country. Investigations into the election meddling accuses Putin of interfering in the 2016 elections and tilting it in Trump's favor. But Russia was not taken that seriously before the elections. When Republican presidential candidates John McCain and Mitt Romney listed Russia as a security threat during their campaigns, their claims were dismissed by members of the Democratic Party with a laugh. Former President Barack Obama, throughout his 8-year tenure, referred to Russia as a regional power. President Putin did not take these words too kindly. European countries also accused the Kremlin of meddling in their affairs. The UK government has accused President Putin of influencing the Brexit vote. The poisoning of former Russian spy Sergei and his daughter Yulia Skripal has led to a diplomatic standoff between Russia and the United Kingdom. As usual, Moscow denies all charges. The Europeans also struggle to combat Russia's annexation of Crimea and Kremlin's continuing intervention in eastern Ukraine. Beyond the United States and Europe, Russia's rise in West Asia, specifically Syria, has become a headache for Western countries. President Putin has managed to cement Russia's position in Syria through military intervention. Putin is also attempting to reshape politics in Eurasia by joining hands with China through creation of regional institutions like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Putin's ties with Western powers continues to remain tense, but a permanent fight could lead to Russia's isolation in the world. Russia cannot afford that. Sanctions have crippled the country's economy. The fall in oil prices led to a collapse in the value of Russia's ruble. A powerful Putin gives a psychological boost for the struggling Russian middle class. Bureau Report, WION.
As one analyst put it, the real drama in this election begins after the election is over. This is the time when Vladimir Putin is going to decide on his core team. With the election out of the way, the Russian president is looking to get back to business. What is different about this win is that Putin left his party to contest as an independent candidate, which means that the Russian to his cabinet, he didn't really need one. He rules like a dictator, but will he make those changes is also a million-dollar question. 14 political parties had extended their support to Vladimir Putin for this election. It would not be a surprise if the Russian president accommodates all of them within his cabinet, or at least some of them. One report in the Russian media claims that the number of deputy prime ministers can be increased from 9 to 12. But who will be Putin's prime minister? As per Russian law, the incumbent prime minister is obliged to resign after the inauguration of the president, who can then either appoint a new prime minister or reassign the current one. Russian media reports have named as many as 9 other candidates in the run-up to the polls, but the incumbent prime minister, Dmitry Medvedev, at the moment remains the front-runner for that job. Vladimir Putin is also expected to have a wide-ranging agenda for his fourth term. Reviving the economy is the biggest challenge before the Russian president. So far, the Russian economy has remained largely dependent on oil for revenues, but the recent collapse in oil prices led to a massive drop in the value of the ruble. Sanctions by the US and the European Union have made the situation worse. Putin has vowed to lift Russia's middle class, who have struggled in these difficult times. That was an election promise, and we know what happens to most of them. The Russian president will also aim to consolidate Russia's position in Syria. Syrian forces backed by Russia are closing in on the last rebel strongholds. Russia is unlikely to pull out of Syria anytime soon, even when it continues to face criticism for targeting civilians in places like eastern Ghouta. Western powers will be closely watching Russia's move in Ukraine and other neighboring countries. A conflict serves Putin's interests. One can expect more attempts from the Kremlin to bring former Soviet Union states under its sphere of influence.